All right. We are live. We are streaming. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy New Year. Hope everyone had an amazing holiday. This is the first Talk on Race for 2021. It is Talk on Race Mental Health, and thank you so much for joining us. As usual, we're going to start with the land acknowledgement. The Lower Cape Fear YWCA serves the people located within the Lower Cape Fear region. This land once thrived with life from indigenous peoples, known today as the Cape Fear Indians and the Waccamaw Indian people, living in established settlements along the Cape Fear River and Lake Waccamaw, along with many other established sites in the region. We need to protect and honor the history of these places. Indigenous people are not relics of the past. They are here, still continuing to demonstrate their talents and gifts amidst a backdrop of ongoing colonialism and oppression. They are worth celebrating. We hope that our land acknowledgement statement will inspire others to stand with us in solidarity with Native nations. So again, thank you so much. Welcome to Talk on Race. Audience, we would like for you to know that you are welcome to submit live questions as we will be answering them as we are able to. So first, let's start with introductions. First, Crystal, please tell us your name, the organization that you work for, and your role.
So my name is Crystal Pellom, and I reside right here in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I am a licensed clinical mental health therapist. I have been treating children and young adolescents for over 5 years. I practice right here at Coastal Horizon Center. Recently, I transitioned into the role of Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. A lot of words. Thank
Congratulations.
you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I like to say that that's just a nice representation of our commitment to making sure that we're providing equitable services to all of our diverse population members. And so that's me. That's kind of what I do.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Daniela.
Hi, I'm Daniela. I am a native Wilmingtonian and I am practicing here at the Community Counseling Center. Um, I work with adolescents, adults, couples, mainly with postpartum depression with women and anxiety and depression with our other populations. I am excited to be here and I love the idea of talking on race and what the YWCA stands for.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Ashley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley Gilmore. I am the owner of Gilmore Counseling and Consulting Services here in Durham, North Carolina. I work with clients who may be suffering from anxiety, anything from the cope of a generalist, as we heard earlier. I also work with couples and families. And I'm just really happy to be here. It's an exciting time. It's a hard time, but it's a really exciting time.
Thank you so much for being here. And Dr. Miranda.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Miranda. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor supervisor. All those wonderful.
You have to say that because you work very hard for every single thing you just said. Okay.
Letter behind and in front of my name. I have worked hard for them. I am the owner and clinical director of Divine Appointment Counseling Services, 2 locations to serve you, one in Johnston County and one in Wayne County. I do reside currently in Wayne County, and I work primarily with couples, individuals from age 5 to 99. And I do a lot of trauma work, specifically with those who are of the Christian faith, coupling, soul therapy, doing a lot of inner healing, and work as it pertains to trauma, childhood trauma, and how it has affected them as an adult. So that's the gist of, I do a lot.
You are busy. All right, and Susan.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here today. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I'm on staff as a psychotherapist at the Community Counseling Center with Daniela Williams and some others here. I've been a psychotherapist since 2005, but I've only been in Wilmington for 3 years now. I work with usually adolescents and up on anxiety and depression and trauma and relationship issues. I feel like I'm a generalist at heart. And especially these days, I feel like all those issues have been exacerbated. I also I follow my clients' lead to do this, but I like to incorporate faith and spirituality into my work because I failed to mention earlier that I am also ordained as a Presbyterian minister. I went to seminary and have my MDiv as well. So Thank you for having me today.
Thank you all so much for being here. So we're going to jump right in. What are some self-care practices that you tend to recommend to your clients? And maybe while you're talking about that, talk about the importance of self-care. I think everybody kind of uses this term kind of loosely, but as therapists, when you are talking with your clients, what do you mean by self-care and why is it important? Anybody?
I'll jump out. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Melinda.
I was just gonna. I've learned throughout 2020, self-care is more than getting your hair and your nails done.
Oh, tell me.
Is a lot more than just indulging in an afternoon of fun activity. There's of course mindfulness, which is being in the moment, not worrying about the past and not concerned about the future. I even adopted something called porch therapy for myself, where I utilize my rocking chair and my porch with no particular agenda, just to go outside and listen to all the sounds of nature and to watch the birds in my yard. And I purposely did that before I was able to see any of my clients. And then I do something called brain dumping, where it's nothing specific to do with journaling per se. You don't have a topic. You just get everything that's in your brain off your brain onto paper. So whatever's in your brain doesn't go to your heart. And so those are some of the things that I did and I implored my clients to do during 2020.
I love that. I love
and
that.
And I think that similar to what you said, I think the most important thing to remember is self-care is so deliberate and it's intentional. And it doesn't happen by happenstance. And it's you prioritizing, checking in with yourself and spending time with where you are mentally, physically, emotionally, and all of those things in order to really try to achieve wellness. And so I think of self-care for me during these times of social media being at the palm of our hands is me just putting down the phone. Sometimes that's me practicing self-care. I know in the morning, even though as tempting as it is to roll over and scroll Instagram, I try to make sure that first hour is about me doing what I call a pulse check, which is okay, what am I feeling right now? What do I have planned for my day? And really just having that internal dialogue. And that is self-care for me. And I always encourage others to also do those internal check-ins.
Absolutely. Very similar to Dr. Miranda. Outside, I've read some fairly new research, green space is proven to reduce anxiety and depression almost as much as medication. And so they even have green light therapy. So my self-care includes me walking at Longleaf Pine almost every day. If I could live there, I would. So just getting outside and something deliberate, going outside every day, even when I don't feel like it, that resets my brain. It resets my intentions for it. It's just this place where I let go of everything. So going outside and getting that vitamin D, I recommend my clients, if they're expressing symptoms of depression and anxiety, I encourage them to do at least 20 minutes a week outside. Even that could be broken down in 5. But being outside, the increasing vitamin D, increasing your heart rate, all of those things are just as effective as SSRIs, which are antidepressants. So I agree with Dr. Miranda, that space is so important.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the big 3 for me in terms of self-care, I love whoever said it's more than just a pedicure and a haircut or whatever, are, how we eat, what we put into our bodies, and how we sleep, sleep hygiene and all that. And then also exercise. And I include just outside time, everything Daniela just said, into exercise, being outside. I mean, I know we can exercise inside too, but there is something about that light and that nature. But I wanted to add on to that, as you do these things, especially the exercise piece. And you know, you can do mindful eating as well, being where we are. I feel like we were already always somewhere else with social media, but now that we are isolated and the only way to connect with other people a lot of the time is to actually be somewhere else. I mean, I'm in my office right now, but I'm also with all of you. And in a minute, I'm going to be in the same space, but in somebody else's house doing a virtual therapy session. I think that is really taxing on our mental health. And so the more we can take that time out for ourselves to just simply be where we are and to practice all those great things that you all have mentioned is just super important right now for self-care.
Absolutely.
I'll also add, I work with couples, and I'm gonna go kind of off beat here, but I tell them to have sex.
Really?
Yes.
You know, sometimes it's hard. Couples are not connecting, especially in
Mm.
this season. We're missing each other. And so I'm an advocate, you know, like sometimes it's good to get away for 20 minutes by yourself and just explore each other. And so having some intimacy is a form of self-care for that couple, but also having family time. So like I said, I work with couples and families, but giving them the opportunity to watch a movie or to see Christmas lights or to get outside and do family walks is a form of self-care that we often miss when we're trying to, you know, get ourselves together. So those are two big ones that I work with my couples on, my clients on a lot.
I love
Awesome.
those. So do those also encourage positive mental health? Like, does that also increase I guess, decrease the negative mental health? It also gives us like what's the good stuff that's released in our brain? Help me out, doctors.
Endorphins.
Serotonin.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So those kind of actions, a healthy sex life, a great walk, those types of things kind of help us maintain a positive mental health. Are there other things that you recommend that also assist with that? Some other good behaviors that you could do?
I definitely think journaling is really important. And I know a lot of us probably, you know, give that as homework to a lot of our clients, but definitely journaling and writing, Dr. Miranda said it, but like a brain dump is a really good way to just release some of the things that we're carrying. A lot of us hold on to anxiety by not being able to release it. And so a brain dump or journaling activity outside is a really good way to kind of ease some of the anxiety and depression that we may be experiencing, especially in this season.
And
Now,
I
go ahead.
want to add to that also too, less is more. I don't know if you guys experienced that during 2020, but I jumped off a major hamster wheel of my life that I wasn't able to do prior to 2020 and just discovered that less is more. Like it's okay to not be involved in every Zoom or in every meeting or in every training. But I've discovered that, you know, making a meal with my son, who will be 13 in a couple of weeks, is just as fulfilling as taking him to Blaze Pizza and going to see a movie. I mean, just less activity has been more for me. And it has actually given space to my mental capacity and not be so cluttered and cloudy and just busy all the time. Not necessarily productive, but just busy.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how you mentioned with your son, because working with youth and young toddlers and up to like 6 and 7, 8-year-olds, and we don't often prioritize or even think about their mental health during these times as well. And so building that connection, like what you said, Ashley, between two people, so like a parent to a child, really helps that child. I know a lot of children right now are kind of left to their own devices with either having to be logged on for school or like Fortnite and all kind of other video games. And that could be a form of self-care, but too much of it could be also a little, I guess, like too much at times. And so asking them to disconnect, to then reconnect to you is also a really healthy form of self-care for them.
And
Yeah.
definitely building that connection. That is one of the number one ways to prevent depression and suicide. The CDC has a recommendation, and they've done a study that connectedness is their priority, and creating that with community, creating that with one-on-one, and to our bringing it out bigger to connect is the biggest way. So Crystal is absolutely on point when she's saying connecting with your child, not just being in the same room, but having those discussions. How was your day? What was your favorite part of the day? Not yes and no questions. We really want to get into, why do you like this color? What's your favorite color? What's your favorite dinosaur? If you're talking with a 3-year-old, because they all love dinosaurs. But just kind of digging in. Why do you like that? Digging in and not accepting the basic question, the basic answers that people give you, like, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Or, I'm blessed. What does that mean? So we really digging in.
I love how our own self-care is connected to the self-care of our children too. I mean, here we are talking about how we can be where we are and like with who we're with, connecting with those. And so, because all of us are sharing space so much more now too, we're all at home with our families. And so it's nice to know that by paying attention to our own self-care, we're also doing that with our kids and showing them how to do that at the same time. I mean, I think they really go together.
We have a question from the audience. They want to know a little bit more about the connectedness and how do you help the elderly who are feeling so isolated right now? How do you help them stay connected? And also, how do you help them enable self-care practices?
That's a good question.
Great question.
I'll just jump in about the seniors at my church, because I don't really have a large senior population of people that I see counseling. I do have a few. And I probably allow them more access to me than any of my clients. And I don't know if that's ethically sound or correct or something that I should do, but I do. And especially since, we're in the time that we are in. And when I say more access to me, I mean, they have my cell number and they can text me when they're feeling whatever, and then we connect immediately. And I don't say, oh, well, wait till your next appointment. But I know for our church, we have campus pastors that, you have one leader, but then you have campus pastors who maybe have a total of 25 people that they check on. And so, we've made it a point to do drive-bys and call and text, and, older people tend to like that phone call. They're not really with the Zoom, logging on or the text messaging, but just making it intentional to just check on them, even if you can't, physically be in their space for too long.
And I know for me personally, my mother is in a nursing home. So what I do, they all have windows. So even if I just go by so she can see my face, and she can't hear me, and we talk on the phone while I'm there, but seeing my face brightens her, and her grandchildren. But another, like a phone call, the voice is something that's not just a text, and anything could be taken out of context, and it could feel like, oh, I don't really want to bother anyone. So initiating that first conversation with an elder, asking them about their past, again, connecting with those questions that don't allow for yes or no, just digging in, like what was your favorite memory? Well, who did you date? Like young children, kind of getting the kids involved with the elders. Like, what was it like? What music did you listen to? What was your favorite song? Having those discussions, because a lot of our elders, they're pretty spicy. I meet with some, they'll tell you whatever you want to know, even if you don't want to know. They will tell you. You just have to kind of engage with them in that way.
And I'll say, my grandmother, I bought her, this is no kind of endorsement, but I bought my grandmother an Echo Show and it connects to Alexa. So all she has to do is say, video call so-and-so, and then it video calls them, and then she can talk face to face without having to navigate technology too much. It just goes to her voice. And of course, she's like, I'm unplugging this at night. I'm like, Grandma, you can unplug it at night, Grandma. But me and my cousins, we tried to be very innovative with like figuring out how can we see her so that she can see us, as well. So I'm going to kind of pivot a little bit to get a little bit more in a dialogue about race. How do you help your clients through microaggressions and through sexism and through racism? I will say that it has been very helpful to have a group of women around me when I have experienced these things, when I have experienced microaggressions, to have kind of like my sister girl circle to say, y'all, I cannot believe that they just said this to me. But this is what has been said. So as therapists, what do you say to your clients? What do you say to them when they come and say, I didn't get a promotion and I don't know, I think the only reason why is because I'm Black?
Well, I know from my end as a therapist, one of the best things we can do is listen and validate, right? And that idea of believing someone when they say they experienced something and it made them feel a way. I don't have to be in your shoes. I don't have to be present to know that this is a possible thing that could have happened. And I think often when we don't validate and we try to reframe what could have happened, that's when we start to see those feelings of like feeling gaslighted and feeling devalued and things of that nature. And so I think that a lot of clients that come in who have experienced their own microaggression or micro assaults, it's those three things that you kind of revert back to, which is, I always say, is it something you want to let go? Is it something you want to give weight to? Or is it something you want to process and come back to? You know, and because it's tiring to feel like you have to address every single microaggression that you come in contact with on a daily basis. So when you ask most Black people or Latinx, and they say, how you feel? You're like, I'm tired. They're tired of the mental and internal fight of always having or feeling like they always have to redirect, teach, and educate, you know, around what you did or what you said that was discriminatory, or what you said that was hurtful. And so I usually go back to those three things and let them discern which one they want to use for themselves, because those options and knowing your options are really important.
I'm gonna piggyback on what Crystal said and just say talk therapy is just underrated. Just let people dump and talk, and all we need to do is have the positive regard and the non-judgmental ear, and just let them vent and get it off their chest and help them to process, like she said, you know, what they're feeling and how they're feeling, and then, you know, what do you want to do about it, but not to frame it in any way. Well, this is what happened to you, and don't you think this is, you know, what's going on? Talk. Like, I have clients, honestly, I can ask one question at the top of the hour, and that one question has them just verbally for 50 minutes, and I've said nothing, like nothing. Literally, I've nodded and I've said, well, tell me more, or whatever, and just let them vent. And sometimes people need that. And what surprises me still, after I've been doing this since 2007, when people in the session and they say, oh my God, you are the best therapist ever. I'm like, I didn't do anything. But talk therapy is underrated, where you let the client just talk.
I would say creating space for that too. I feel like when I see a client who, you know, is another white woman my age, she might assume that I know a lot of things about her. And so she'll talk to me in a certain way. But if I'm seeing a client who's not my gender, not my age, you know, not my skin color, and just simply like creating space for that, just asking that one simple question that you mentioned, like, I'm curious about that, or did, you know, tell, you know, then just naming it and simply letting them know that there is space for that in our time together. That is really important for me. And then you're right, they can just, it's amazing what will just come from there. So it's a lot of listening. There's not some specific thing that I'll say, of course, but just making that space, like this is a safe space. Like, please come and just tell me what it's like for you. So
I know for me, working with my clients who have experienced microaggressions or sexism, a lot of my clients are women who are pregnant. And so we all know the statistics on Black women and pregnancy is scary. And so they are terrified when they're happy, and they're terrified that they're pregnant. And so holding space for that for them as well, in addition to giving them resources to say, you know, check with this doctor, ask about this, just kind of making sure that they know that there are options for them. And then with those who are in the workplace, just letting them know that every action has a reaction. What do you want to do? Like Crystal said, do you want to give weight to this? and if it's important, what are your options in giving weight to that, and what are the consequences of that? Because everything has a consequence. We can fight. Do we want to fight every fight? And we possibly lose this one thing that can propel us somewhere else. So we just kind of giving them space and giving them options, giving people options is important, I think.
Definitely echoing what everyone said. I definitely think validating them, like Crystal said, is really, really important. Because in a lot of settings, microaggressions are just that. They're very, like, we can't see it. So, if this person is experiencing that, they need to feel that they can come here and trust me with that. And so validating their experience and understanding that, like, I have also had microaggressions happen to me. And so being transparent about that allows them to feel safe and to feel that they have someone who can understand what they're going through. So I definitely think validation, but relation is really, really important.
Yeah, I agree. What do your clients ever struggle with articulating that experience? And Crystal, I see you saying yes.
Because I don't think it's just our clients that struggle. I think I struggle with articulating some of the microaggressions that I experience. I think that's a human human opportunity to, not opportunity, but experience to be able to kind of trip over, like, am I tripping? Did that just happen? And to kind of second guess yourself.
Yeah.
And again, like, there has been, especially around race, there's been a lot of gaslighting and people saying what you thought you experienced is not exactly what you did experience. And so it causes one to have those second guesses. And so, and then you're fighting stereotypes as a Black woman. If I want to give weight to what I think I just experienced, now I have this internal conflict too of, am I going to come off angry? Am I going to come off petty? Am I going to come off all those things that are kind of been linked to a trope of what it means to express yourself as a Black woman? And so those things act as barriers. And so I think that we have to give people, like what Suzanne said, the space to figure it out. You may not have the words in the moment. You may have missed it, right? Like, I wish I would have said. How many people have left a situation going, oh, I wish I would have said this, or I wish I would have said it like that, and helping them understand that repairment is a part of the process. You can go back and still try to repair whatever severed happened in that relationship.
I love that.
I don't think that people understand, especially for Black people, how important code switching is, and how tiring it is.
Exhausting.
And so, yeah. So therapy, I found for my practice, my clients are elated to come to therapy so they don't have to do that. And whether it is or not that I am the therapist that just so happens to understand the other side of the switch, whatever that is, it's exhausting. And so when they do come for talk therapy, they can just talk. And they don't have to worry about being politically correct or code switching to let everybody understand what they really mean. So yeah, that's some space to do that.
That was really important, Dr. Miranda, when you're talking about code switching. That is, I have people who seek me out simply because I'm Black, and I popped up on Psychology Today, and they're like, oh gosh, I'm so happy that I found it. Because then there's there are things that are unsaid, and I know that we're all trained, like, you never assume, but you have this ability to assume because it's a cultural, we all kind of live the same life almost, and so if they're like, and girl, and they're like, yeah, well, I know, so if someone says and girl, you're like, and then they know what you mean. And so that's the power of collectivism, and the power of knowing, like, okay, this is what she's experiencing. And then I'll go back, of course, and clarify. And I was like, so what happened then? But that moment where you connect on almost a spiritual soul level, like, yeah, I experienced it. I know what you're talking about. And it's so affirming. And
so we have a question. What is code switching?
I knew that was coming.
You knew that was going to come, right? Come on, Ashley. Help us on the game.
So code switching is the ability to not be your authentic self in professional settings. I'm gonna do the most PC way.
Come on, education.
It is a way for us to not show up and be who we are in these spaces, because other people will judge us for who we are. And so that is code switching. So a lot of us will do the "hey girl" outside, but when we go in, it's "hello, good afternoon, it's good to see you." So that is an example of code switching, and it is draining when you work in predominantly white settings. And it's really encouraging to see my fellow sisters who can empathize with that, and that this is a real thing, and that our clients experience this too. And so it's that shared connection of code switching being a thing that is both draining, hard, and overrated. Code switching is really overrated at this point.
I agree. Code switching is overrated and exhausting. When do you know that it's time to reach out and get a therapist?
Oh, go ahead, Crystal.
Well, do I give my face must give it all away.
It does, but it's okay. It's beautiful.
I have to work on my poker face. I guess because the question is a little triggering for me, because I think that we often see therapy as a reaction. Mm-hmm. And I am a huge advocate for therapy as prevention. Yeah. And I think anytime we're talking about transitions, whether that's in age or responsibilities at work, or from single to being committed, to any time we think about life's changes, I think it's okay, and it's pretty much self-care in that sense, to make sure that we put things in place so that we are really taking care of ourselves, and that having a therapist is a part of that. But when I think about when it's time to see a therapist, I would say when one starts to understand or recognize, like, there's some disruption, there's something happening to my peace of mind, to my physical health, to my emotional well-being. And you don't have to be able to put a finger on it or know what to call it. That's our job, to help you make sense of what could be going on, or to help, like what you said earlier, give words to what you're experiencing. But I think that when people do those check-ins that we're encouraging them to do, and they find that there's some turmoil, there's some discord there internally, and some disruptions and things that are important to them, it's time to call someone or talk to someone.
I liken it to the doctor. I mean, this is very much health. Like, you go to the doctor for an annual checkup. It's just so if you go to a therapist for an annual checkup, every day you're living. So you're checking in, and that is not, like Crystal said, it's a matter of self-care, to be intentional about. There are people who don't go to the doctor, but you should, because that's your body. This is the only body you're going to get. This is the only mind you're going to have. And do you want it? You have to know that there's different is possible. And sometimes you need an outside voice to say, hey, have you thought of this? And you're like, oh, no, I didn't. But your friends and your family are in this together. And a lot of people say, well, I got a best friend. That's my therapy. But she can't help you to pull that stuff apart, because she's in it with you. You know, you need an outside, non-judgmental. Nothing you say with us will ever go anywhere except for 4 reasons. And that if you're self-harm, if you're harming someone else, if there's elder abuse or child abuse, and if you give us consent, or if a judge. But that all of that we talk about. But anything else, your stuff is safe with us. It's illegal for us to share it. So you don't have to worry about your best friend talking to someone else and like, oh girl, let me tell you about. That's not going to happen here. This is a sacred space just for you, just like your doctor. It's for you, and taking care is what you have to do. You only have one mind, you only have one life, and you can live it to the fullest by exploring your options.
And Ashley, what I would say, maybe the same question for couples, since you deal a lot with couples therapy. What are some signs? Maybe it's not always that you are having problems, right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Couples don't always have to come. People usually come to therapy because they're dealing with something from somebody else sometimes.
I guess true.
The case can be the same for couples. Necessarily, something may not necessarily be wrong, but it's always good to have a checkup. But for couples, I definitely think if you are experiencing a lack of communication, effective communication, So going 3 days without talking to your husband or your spouse is unhealthy.
Yeah.
Definitely if you feel like you are, sometimes it's hard for people to get out of the bed. And so if one spouse is able to get up and move and the other one can, and there's no check-in, that's a good reason to come to therapy. Sometimes a lack of effective sex is a reason to come to therapy. You're not sure if there's something physically or psychologically wrong, and so you want to be able to get a checkup for that. But you know, it really could be just a simple we're not vibing, and that's just human nature, especially in a pandemic. Like, let's just be real. You're not
Especially.
Especially some we realize it. The divorce rate has actually kind of wavered over the last year because couples are realizing that the person that they're spending 24 hours in the 24 hours a day with is not the person that they thought that they were supposed to be spending their life with. And so
Wow.
imagine if you're with someone and this is not a healthy environment for you, it's going to be really hard. And so I have some couples have reached out because they're like, we're not sure what's happening. You know, you technically you're not supposed to be with everybody 24 hours in the day. You know, that's why you work 8 and you sleep. You're not always supposed to be with the same person. And
The
so,
same with kids. I want to say this because this virtual schooling thing. Woo, Jesus. It
So-
is yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Can I also add another thing too? When people go through really scary, let me put it this way. There's a thing with resiliency that's great, right? But we can't assume that everyone is as resilient as we are. And so when you think about going through things and experiencing things, what's traumatic to one person may not be traumatizing to the other. And so I say that for my parents who have been going through their own stressors, their own challenges with this pandemic or employment or any relationship issues that we don't often consider our kids because we think if we got over it, we got through, and if I'm strong, they'll be fine too. And that's not always the case. So this is just me throwing out a plug that make sure that we're also thinking about when it's time for our children to seek therapy as well. And that's not I guess that does not show anything about your parenting at all. And in fact, getting them there shows just how committed to your child's wellness that you are.
Now that you brought that up, it kind of points to also this stigma around reaching out for help. So what are some of the stigmas that you hear, and what are some of the ways that you would offer people to think about therapy differently?
Well, I think some of the stigmas that we hear, you need to talk to somebody. I mean, just that phrase, now's the time, it's sort of like, well, now it's the time to admit that I can't handle my own stuff. I don't have my stuff together. Or there's some illness to it, some illness related. Yes, there's mental illness. Yes, we've talked a lot about the medical model too. I really destigmatize. I talk about my own therapist. I mean, I'll just throw it out there. I won't go into detail about what I'm working on in my own therapy session unless it's a close friend or I won't talk. Yes, I won't talk with my clients about my own therapy, but with my friends and family, I will. But even with my clients, I'll just say, I'll let it be known when the time is right that therapists have their own therapists. We all need them. You don't, like Daniela was saying, you don't have to wait until something is catastrophic. If it is, then go in. But a lot of times I'll talk about therapy. It's a great time to sort of, I think of it as sort of growing ourselves up the rest of the way. Our parents could get us so far as I will only be able to get my children so far. And then we go through things in life, whether it's just a developmental stage or something else, a relationship, everything we mentioned. And it's nice to have a place just to go be curious about yourself, about your husband and couples therapy, about your partner, just, to have that space to just kind of grow so that you can keep being the best version of yourself when you start to feel like something is just not quite the way it should be.
I love that, Susan, because therapy is not about telling you what to do.
Yeah.
Therapy is about helping you to see things in a different way. I always use the example of you see the glass half full, and I mean, you see the glass half empty. I see the glass half full. So I'm giving you a different perspective on maybe there's another way that you can view this. And so it's all about perception and perspective. For me, I really try to destigmatize that, there's something wrong with you, that you have a therapist. You're really just having someone else who is objectively assisting you in processing your thoughts and your feelings. That's it. And so it's just that simple. I think sometimes when we're explaining it to people, and not to make it so mystical and that, you know, you're something, you know, cray cray or something wrong with you, and I told you that you were bipolar. It's not like that.
Dr. Miranda, I love that. Just the whole idea of like the conversation. I'm a change agent. You know, I'm not giving you the tool. Like, you have the tools within you. You just need me to help you pull them out. I find myself asking questions. Well, what do you think we could do about that? And they will come up with 5 different things. Like, they probably would not have thought of if I were not helping them to pull that out. So I think that has become a way to destigmatize. But having these conversations is a really, really good way. So I really appreciate what the YWCA is doing, because mental health is so important, but we don't want to have the conversations. And so having these kind of conversations really opens up the door and answers the questions, well, what's wrong with me? Or can I see a therapist? Is it healthy? Am I crazy? We all got stuff. We all got stuff. The therapist has stuff, but that doesn't mean that that we don't deserve to work through our stuff and become better at who we are. So having these kind of conversations helps to stigmatize the stigma of mental illness.
And I love that, because you just said you owe it to yourself, and you are valued enough to be able to work through your stuff, because we all have stuff. We've all had a childhood. We've all had parents, like or lack of a childhood or lack of parents. So we all have stuff, and we owe it to ourselves to work through stuff. Are there any policies around mental health that you would like to advocate to change? Go ahead. Oh, I see everybody like, there is one.
I want to go back to the stigma, one that's kind of big, and I was wondering what Crystal thought about it. I hear a lot of people, they're worried about the child abuse kind of thing. Like, if we will, they'll say, well, I don't want you to take my kids away if I tell you this thing. And it's like, I'm not here to take your kids away. And I'm wondering how, because you deal with a lot of parents and children, I'm wondering how you mitigate that.
Yeah.
Well, I think for one is to acknowledge that concern is real, right? And I think it goes back to, again, like our history in this country with races and systems. And so the idea of like how language can be contorted sometimes if you don't truly understand one's culture, one's cultural beliefs, and how that has led to disruption in the family dynamic before. And so I'm generally very transparent in the beginning of any relationship I have with the child and their parent, which is like, what are the reasons why this conversation we will even come back to this conversation? And for one, I don't take kids, which I love the fact that I don't work for DSS, because I could never do that. But I do prioritize a child's safety, and I prioritize a parent's safety, and I make sure I tell them both that equally, because as much as I don't want to see that child harmed, Mom, I don't want to see something that's going, you do something, or Dad, you do something that's going to harm your family. And so that safety comes on both ends of the spectrum. And so, like you said earlier in the conversation around what are the reasons I would ever have to bring somebody else into our relationship, around those reporting laws. And I make sure they're aware of what those reporting laws are, so that if we do come to that, they don't feel blindsided. We had the conversation before. But again, I think that distrust that happens in the therapeutic relationship between a parent and the therapist that's working with their child is also understanding, teach me your family construct. I want to learn your family system. I know that every parent that said it, and girl, I want to go upside her head. Sometimes that's a cultural context. I know you're not going to go upside her head. I know that's I hear my grandma, who never lifted a finger, but she's been saying. And so if you don't understand the cultural tones to some of the things that people say, there could be a lot of miscommunication. And so I think that developing trust on all fronts between the parent and the therapist, and the child and the therapist too, is important, because also we don't want kids to feel like their moms or their dads or their grandparents are going to get upset with them if they do share something in therapy. And that has also been a barrier. And so I know I've been talking a lot, but I hope I answered your question around transparency and developing trust are those two biggest things that you have to focus on in any therapeutic relationship, as we know, but especially as delicate when you're dealing with a child.
I think it kind of goes, I'm so sorry. I think it kind of goes back to what Dr. Miranda was talking about with code switching. I want to go upside your head. Like, I want to beat the living daylight. All of those familial terminology.
My
Like,
mom has said that, and I
I'm
know
not going
she's
to do
watching.
it.
And I love you, Mom.
But it's so important, like you said, for us to have culturally competent therapists who seek to understand, and for people to know that's a big part of this, providing a destigmatization. That I made up a word.
It's okay.
That.
We do it all the time. They tell us it's okay. It's fine.
Yes.
But I think that's a big barrier for African American people of color, and coming to therapists like, oh, they're mandatory reporters, are going to do this thing. But our goal is for healthy families. And I think Crystal did an amazing job sharing that. We want to connect, we want to understand. And our job is not to take anybody's child away from anyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to get that part out. I'm sorry.
I think it's definitely important because, especially dealing with children in the pandemic, my son is the only child, so it's us. He doesn't have a sibling to play with, and we would love for him to play with other kids, but then there's COVID. So, just monitoring him, making sure like he's feeling good. And when he's not having a good day because he's been in the house all day, coming up with activities and coming up with different ways where he can interact. Kids aren't having birthday parties, and that's devastating for kids. They're used to having pizza parties and friends over and, trying to be innovative and creative and letting our children know, like, we love you. You are loved and supported. I know the only people you're seeing is, from my home is me and your dad, but like you still have a whole village of family and friends around you who is supporting you and rooting you, even though you can't see them in this moment. So, I definitely think that it's important for, as a parent to just make sure I'm monitoring him. So like, hey, do you need to go see somebody? I'm going to go see somebody. You're going to go see somebody. And daddy's going to go see somebody. And we're all going to be better people.
Yeah.
I think it's important. So no, I really do appreciate that. But I would like to talk about some policies that maybe need to change. One of them I will say that does concern me at times is like, I've seen, there was an incident downtown where like there was a person, it was clear that he was having some sort of a mental breakdown. And like the first thing that people did was call the police. And the police aren't necessarily trained to deal with people who are having mental illness or having episodes. And so one of the things that I know some police forces have is they have therapists on duty who can call and de-escalate situations. But I don't know if that is worldwide, countrywide, or if that's just something that happens, every now and then. But, I would love your thoughts on maybe some other policies that could help, especially like the incident with the police.
I know you. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dr. Miranda.
I was just going to say, I agree with everything that you just said. I have found in all of my years of being a licensed professional counselor that we don't get the same rights and privileges as those who are social workers. And nothing against social work. All of my good friends are social workers. But as far as rates of pay, being able to take Medicare, being able to take, certain insurances, or even being able to work in places like the hospital or prison, or so hopefully, prayerfully, with 2020 and everything that has escalated with this pandemic, those laws will change. Those rights and privileges and opportunities will afford more of us to be in common places. There should be, in my opinion, there should be a licensed mental health person in every genre of workplace. There should be one on your church staff. There should be one in the car dealership. There should be one at the bank. I think there should be a licensed mental health person everywhere. My 2 cents.
I was just going to say, sorry.
Go ahead, Miss.
Go ahead, Susan.
All right. Well, I've had lots of thoughts. One, going back to the police thing, I know when someone is of danger, then yes, the police are the people to call. But the mobile crisis line has been really helpful to me. I want to make sure people know about that.
Yes,
I mean, I think there's even more than Okay, I think there's like more than one. I mean, more than one of them, but I have one that I've always give out. And I mean, it's called the mobile crisis line, and I have the number here if you want
Yeah,
me to get
share
it.
it.
Okay.
Please share it.
It is 1-866-437-1821. And so, you know, their job is to de-escalate, it's to keep people out of the hospital, but clearly if someone is of danger to themselves or others, they will, you know, do what needs to be done to keep people safe. But so that's a great resource. Also, going back to workplace and it would be great to have a mental health professional in every work area. Yes. And also, there are a lot of professions, I feel like, where if you have a diagnosis or it's known, to use insurance, you have to have a diagnosis. And there are some professions where if you have a diagnosis, then you are no longer eligible for a job, you know. And even if that's not necessarily true, there's a huge fear of that.
Yeah.
That really bothers me. That bothers me.
I think you took the words right out. The diagnosing and insurance is one of the biggest hurdles, I feel like, because with that also comes the whole cannot afford therapy.
Yeah.
And so there seems to be an influx of services for our Medicaid, Medicare clients, and then those who can afford out of pocket also don't really have these same barriers to treatment, but it's that middle group that have private insurance who seem to struggle with engaging in services the most, because it can be costly at some points. You have to dig deep and find who has a sliding scale. And some of that's difficult to navigate. And because of that, you see people start to become a little disgruntled and like, okay, I'm just not even gonna do it because it comes with the cost, you know?
Yeah.
And so the diagnosing and insurance, like Susan said, is one of my biggest, I wish it didn't exist. And I think if I could tag on anything else at the end of it, because again, y'all know I'm the kids advocate, is that I really wish as a nation, we took what mental health meant and applied it and implemented it, incorporated into general educational programs. I think we have PE, we have art, we have all these auxiliary courses that we do to promote wellness in our children, but having 1 week during elementary school to talk about your emotions doesn't suffice. Truly having an understanding of what it means to be healthy and what your body is going through psychologically, emotionally, developmentally, and all of those things. And waiting until our children have big behaviors to then say it's time to talk about it is a little reactive and risky and neglectful, in my opinion. So I wish it was a part of the general curriculum in our educational programs.
I'm so glad.
Yes, I don't know if I'm supposed to snap or clap, but yes to all of that. Yes, yes, and yes.
Just real quick, I would say I think the American Marriage and Family Therapy Association is doing a pretty good job of kind of navigating kind of some policy changes around.
Say that one more time, Ashley.
I'm writing that down.
And so it's the AAMFT, so the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapists. And I'm not an LMFT at all, but because I see couples, I subscribe to their newsletter and stuff. But I think they're doing a really good job of making sure that couples feel safe in the spaces that they're in, and simply couples and families, simply because sometimes insurances have a hard time billing for couples and families. And so usually, one person can come in with a diagnosis and then you got to figure out how to get everybody else in. And so I'm a private pay practice, but I've had to adjust my scale so that a family of 5 can afford to see me. And I'm okay with that because this family obviously needs it. And so I think the organizations on national levels, one, should employ more of us. That's the whole thing. But 2, should create avenues where people feel safe coming to see someone who looks like them and making it affordable for us and for them, because we have to live also. I think people negate that therapists are like, we don't make as much as doctors. I wish I did, but like, I got to feed my family too. And I'm sure all of the therapists on this platform, we've got to feed our families too. And so our rates may not be as much as a doctor or whatever, but we also have to eat. And so I think the policies that I would change is being okay with, more insurance, but also allowing us the opportunity to feel comfortable with what we charge. And I feel like that's a stigma also.
Absolutely.
So we have a pretty extensive question that has come in, and I believe what we'll do, I will send out an email to everyone and have everyone kind of answer it, and then maybe we'll post it on our Facebook page. Post your responses to it. But in our last 5 minutes, what I would really like, because all of you are so amazing, if you are in the community and you are looking for a therapist and you are looking for mental health resources, these are the women that you should be reaching out to. So I would love for to just kind of go around one by one. Please again say who you work for, and let the community know how they can contact you. And then also you should know we will be putting their information up on our website. So it should be up by the end of the week. But I want them all to kind of go around in this last 5 minutes and discuss it. So we'll start with Crystal.
Can I go last? It seems to be a lawnmower outside my window.
Oh, yes. Okay, Crystal, you can go last. All right. So next we'll start with Susan and
Okay.
Daniela, because y'all work
Okay.
together.
That's right. We work together. So I am a licensed clinical social worker, a psychotherapist at the Community Counseling Center on Wrightsville Avenue here in Wilmington. We do have a sliding scale. So we are a nonprofit and we accept grants and donations for a sliding scale. So that's a great privilege for me to be able to offer that to my clients. So, and again, I work with all forms of anxiety and depression, relationship issues, phase of life issues. I work with adolescents would be my youngest, and then all the way up. So I see elderly patients as well, trauma, self-harm, things like that as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Daniela?
I am Daniela, and I am at Community Counseling Center. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor. I also have my website, aplaceofsolace.com, where you can learn more about me, and then you'll be seen through the Community Counseling Center if you need a sliding scale or if you have insurance. I currently take Blue Cross at the moment, so if you don't have Blue Cross, we still can see you via our sliding scale. Additionally, I see women I see everyone for the most part. Adolescents being my youngest, I work a lot with women with postpartum anxiety and depression. I also work with generalized anxiety and depression as well, and some borderline personalities. I use DBT techniques as well as mindfulness techniques to assist those. Again, you can go to my website, www.aplaceofsolace.com.
All right, thank you. And then we'll go to Dr. Miranda.
I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor supervisor. My website is www.divine, appointment, APPT4U.com. I take Cigna, Aetna, Medicaid, but it's only two of the catchment areas. And so that's Alliance and the Sand Hills area. So you guys are on the Eastern North Carolina. I take Mid and Central North Carolina. I also have a very, I believe, affordable, according to my peers, sliding fee scale. And I take clients from 5 to 99. I work primarily, though, with young adult women and couples, and do a lot of faith-based therapy, a lot of inner healing from trauma, childhood trauma, into adulthood.
All right, thank you so much. And Ashley.
Yeah, so I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor also. I'm in Durham, and so if you are in the Triangle area, you can find me. My website is www.gilmorecounseling.com. Like I said, I work with couples, families, and individuals 18 to usually 60. I work with individuals who have experienced trauma, anxiety, depression. We do I am not trained as a sex therapist, but I'm learning. And so working on kind of the importance of establishing and reestablishing a healthy sex life. I am a Christian who I don't promote that, but if there's someone who is looking for a Christian counselor, I have Christian ethics, I guess. And yeah, it's good to be a Black woman in this field right now.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And then last, Crystal.
Okay, I'm gonna try to talk quickly because they actually paused. So I am Crystal Pellom, and right now I'm acting director of diversity, equity, and inclusion at Coastal Horizons. But I am really in the game, ready to collaborate and offer consultation to other community partner members. So please reach out to me. But I know as far as services, we are a very large community service, and so we have a lot of specialty programs that lean towards recovery. We have a lot of special population programs like race crisis, clinical Latina. We have Child First that offers psychotherapy to parents and their children together for that 0 to 5-year-old population. Yes, 0, because infants experience things too. And so we have a lot of specialty programs. And then we do offer just generalized outpatient services. And we are present in over 50 or 60, I might be off on my numbers, counties. And so the services vary depending on the county that you're in. But we do have some kind of representation there. And so as far as insurance goes, we take a panel of insurances, and for those who are uninsured, don't let that determine your outreach, because there is some private funding and some state funding that we can get to offer some kind of aid in making sure that you get the services you need. And so don't let that deter you. Still call in and see what we can do for you. But yeah, and there's a lot of Black men in this area. I found too that are offering therapy. There's a licensed professional counselor at LMB, Jamie Washington, who is providing services as a Black man. I think there's 2 others. You might have to dig through Psychology Today, but they are here and they are present. And so yeah, and then these ladies, and then the Y is another great resource as far as what is available in this community. So I really encourage everyone to reach out, because there's something for what you need. Don't be
Absolutely.
discouraged. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to our wonderful panel of ladies who have talked to us about mental health. And thank you so much for joining us. Everybody have a wonderful evening. And please remember to keep a healthy, positive mental health. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.